The fire crackled and spit sparks into the dark sky. Lieutenant Park sat alone beside it, her back against a fallen tree, her eyes watching the shadows between the alien trees. She had been on this planet for 43 days. 43 days since her shuttle fell from the sky like a broken bird. 43 days since she became the only human on a world that did not want her. 7. That was what the Galactic Council called this place. A small green world at the edge of explored space. The Council had sent her team to study the plants and animals here. They said the mission would be simple. They said nothing would go wrong. They were wrong. Remembered the alarm sounds. She remembered the smoke filling the shuttle. She remembered Corporal pushing her toward the escape pod and saying, "Go, I will be right behind you." But he never came. The shuttle hit the ground somewhere far away and landed alone in a forest that stretched in every direction like a green ocean. She had called for help on the first day. The rescue team answered and told her that they were coming, but they were far away, very far away. It would take months for them to reach her. Until then, she had to survive. Surviving was hard. The food in her emergency pack lasted only 2 weeks. After that, she had to find food in the forest. Her scanner told her which plants were safe to eat and which would kill her. She found a stream with clean water. She built a small shelter from branches and pieces of her escape pod. She made fire with the tools in her kit. But the hardest part was not the hunger or the cold or the loneliness. The hardest part was she saw them on her 5th day. She was walking through the forest looking for food when she heard something moving in the bushes. She turned around and saw it standing there, watching her. It was huge, bigger than any animal she had ever seen. It looked like a wolf from Earth, but it was the size of a small car. Its fur was dark, almost black, but when the light touched it, the fur shimmered with colors like oil on water. Its eyes were silver, bright and cold like metal. It stood on 4 powerful legs, and its mouth was full of teeth longer than her fingers. Did not move, she did not breathe. She waited for the creature to attack. But it did not attack. It just watched her with those silver eyes. Then it turned and walked away into the forest, silent as a ghost. After that, she saw them every day. Never just one, always in groups. The Galactic Council had written reports about these creatures. They called them non-sapient apex predators. That meant they were dangerous animals with no real intelligence, like tigers or sharks. The reports said to avoid them, but was not sure the reports were right. She watched and they watched her. She noticed things. She noticed that they always moved together like soldiers following orders. She noticed that they made sounds to each other, low rumbles and high whistles like a language. She noticed that the biggest one, a female with scars on her face, always walked at the front. The others followed her. Started calling that one grandmother in her mind. She did not know why. Maybe because grandmother reminded her of her own grandmother back on Earth. Strong, wise, patient. For weeks they left her alone. They watched her from the edges of the forest. They circled her camp at night, but they never came close. It was like they were waiting for something, like they were trying to understand what she was. Was fine with that. She did not want trouble. She just wanted to survive until rescue came. But on the 43rd night, everything changed. The sun was setting. The sky turned orange and purple, and the first stars began to appear. Sat by her fire, eating a meal of boiled roots and dried meat from a small animal she had caught. It was not good food, but it kept her alive. She heard a sound, a soft sound like something dragging through the leaves. She looked up. A young was walking toward her. It was small, only the size of a large dog. Its fur was lighter than the adult's, a soft gray color. It was beautiful in its strange alien way. But something was wrong with it. It was limping. Its front leg was bent at a bad angle, twisted in a way that legs should not bend. With every step it whimpered in pain, but it kept walking, kept moving toward her fire, toward her. Stood up slowly. Her heart was beating fast. She looked past the cub at the dark forest beyond. They were there, all of them. 16 adults walked out of the shadows. Grandmother was at the front, her silver eyes locked on. The others spread out behind her, forming a half circle around the campfire. They were so big, so powerful, any one of them could kill her in seconds. But they did not attack. They sat down in the dirt, their massive bodies still as statues, and they watched. The cub reached and stopped. It looked up at her with eyes full of pain. Then it pushed its head against her leg and made a soft crying sound. Its hands were shaking. She did not know what to do. She looked at the cub, she looked at the pack, she looked at grandmother. Grandmother made a sound. It was low and deep, like thunder rolling far away. It was not angry, it was not a threat, it was something else. Had heard that sound before, long ago, in a different life. She had heard it in hospitals, in emergency rooms, in the voices of parents begging doctors to save their children. It was a plea. They had brought the cub to her. They had watched her for weeks, seen her build fires, seen her make tools, seen her do things that no animal on this world could do. And now their child was hurt, and they did not know how to help it. So they brought it to her. Looked down at the cub. Its leg was broken badly. She could see the bone pushing against the skin, ready to tear through. On any civilized world, there would be machines to fix this. There would be medicine and doctors and technology. But here, there was nothing. Here, there was only her. She thought about what she knew. She was not a doctor. She was a survey officer trained to study planets and write reports. But all humans learned basic medicine. It was part of their training. Humans did not trust machines to do everything. They remembered the old ways. Could she help this cub? She did not know. The injury was bad, very bad. If she made a mistake, the cub would die, and then the pack might kill her. But if she did nothing, the cub would die anyway. Took a deep breath. She looked at grandmother, at those ancient silver eyes watching her. "I will try," she said. Her voice was small in the quiet night. "I cannot promise anything, but I will try." Grandmother did not understand her words, but somehow thought she understood the meaning. The old lowered her head slightly, just a little, like a nod. Knelt down beside the cub. She opened her medical kit with shaking hands. She looked at the small bottles and bandages and tools inside. It was not much, it was almost nothing. But it would have to be enough. In the great cities of the Galactic Council, there were no doctors, not the kind that humans remembered anyway. The aliens who ruled the stars had forgotten the old ways of healing long ago. They had machines that could rebuild a body from nothing. They had tanks filled with special liquid that could regrow lost limbs in hours. They had tiny robots that swam through blood and fixed anything broken. Why would anyone need to cut open flesh and sew it back together? Why would anyone need to set bones by hand? That was primitive. That was barbaric. That was something only wild creatures did. The council species had evolved past such things. When their bodies broke, machines fixed them. When their children were sick, computers found the cure. They did not need to learn medicine. They did not need to remember. But humans remembered. Humans came from a small blue planet at the edge of nowhere. They were young compared to the council species. They had only been traveling among the stars for 300 years, and in that short time, they had learned an important truth. Machines could fail, technology could break, and when that happened, you needed to know how to survive with nothing but your hands and your mind. So humans still learned the old ways. Every human child studied basic medicine in school. They learned how bones connected to each other. They learned how blood moved through the body. They learned how to clean a wound, how to stop bleeding, how to help someone who was hurt. Most humans never used this knowledge. They lived on worlds with hospitals and medicine and machines that could fix anything. But the knowledge was there, sleeping in their minds, waiting. Park was one of those humans. She was not a doctor. She had never wanted to be a doctor. She wanted to explore new worlds and study strange plants and write reports about her discoveries. Medicine was just something she learned because all humans learned it. But now, kneeling beside a dying alien cub on a world far from home, that knowledge woke up. She looked at the cub's leg. The break was bad. The bone was cracked in the middle and the two pieces had moved apart. One sharp end was pushing against the skin from inside, stretching it thin. If the bone broke through the skin, infection would come. An infection on a world without medicine meant death. The cub whimpered. Its silver eyes were clouded with pain. It was just a baby, realized, just a child like any child anywhere. It did not understand why it hurt so much. It only knew that it wanted the pain to stop. Behind her, the pack watched in silence. 16 pairs of silver eyes reflecting the firelight. They did not move. They did not make sounds. They just waited. Opened her medical kit all the way. She had not looked at it carefully before. She had hoped she would never need it. Now she spread out everything inside on a clean cloth beside the fire. There was a small bottle of antiseptic. That was for cleaning wounds to prevent infection. There was a roll of bandages, white and soft. There were thin strips of tape. There was a small knife, very sharp and very clean. There were pills for pain, but those were made for humans. She did not know if they would work on they might even be poison. She could not risk it. The cub would have to feel everything. His hands were shaking. She forced them to be still. She thought about what she needed to do. First, she needed to clean the area around the break. Any dirt or bacteria could cause infection. Second, she needed to move the bones back into the right position. That was called setting the bone. It would hurt. It would hurt terribly. Third, she needed to hold the bones in place while they healed. That meant a splint, something hard and straight that would keep the leg from moving. She did not have a splint. She looked around the camp. Her eyes found pieces of her crashed escape pod, metal bars bent and broken from the impact. One of them was almost straight, almost the right size. She stood up and walked to the wreckage. The pack watched her but did not move. She picked up the metal bar and brought it back to the fire. She examined it carefully. Yes, this could work. But she needed something to tie it to the leg. The bandages might not be enough. She thought for a moment. Then she took off her jacket. It was old and torn already, damaged from weeks of survival in the forest. She used the knife to cut it into long strips. The cub watched her with confused eyes. It did not understand what she was doing. Grandmother made a low sound and the cub grew still. Knelt down again. She took a deep breath. "Okay," she said quietly. "Okay, we are going to do this." She poured antiseptic on her hands and rubbed them together. The liquid was cold and smelled sharp and clean. She poured more on a piece of cloth and gently, very gently, cleaned the fur around the broken leg. The cub flinched but did not pull away. Grandmother had moved closer. She was lying on the ground just a few feet away, her massive head resting on her paws, her eyes never leaving. Understood. Grandmother was there for the cub. If the cub needed comfort, grandmother would give it, and if hurt the cub too much if she did something wrong. Push that thought away. She could not think about that now. The area was clean. Now came the hard part. Put her hands on the cub's leg. She could feel the broken bone under the skin and fur. She could feel how the two pieces had moved apart. She needed to push them back together. The cub made a sound of fear. It tried to pull its leg away, held on. "I know," she said softly. "I know it hurts, but I have to do this. I have to." She thought about her mother. When was a little girl, she had broken her arm falling from a tree. Her mother had held her in the hospital, singing old Korean songs to calm her while the doctors worked. Songs about mountains and rivers. Songs about children finding their way home. Began to hum one of those songs now. She did not know if the cub could hear music the same way humans did, but maybe the vibration would help. Maybe the steady sound would calm it. She hummed and she pushed. The cub screamed. It was a terrible sound, high and sharp, full of pain and fear. Every in the pack jumped to its feet. 16 massive predators, teeth bared, ready to kill. Froze, her hand still on the cub's leg. Her heart stopped beating for a moment. Grandmother moved. She walked forward past and pressed her huge nose against the cub's face. She made a sound, soft and low, like a mother comforting a crying baby. The cub whimpered and pushed its head against grandmother's fur. Slowly, one by one, the pack sat back down. They were still tense, still ready to attack, but they waited. Grandmother turned her head and looked at. Those silver eyes held something that had never expected to see in an alien predator. Trust. Grandmother trusted her, despite the cub's scream, despite the fear and the pain. Grandmother believed that was trying to help. Nodded slowly, she understood. She began humming again, and she continued her work. The bones moved under her fingers. She felt them scrape against each other, felt them slide back toward where they should be. The cub cried and whimpered, but grandmother stayed close, making soft sounds, keeping the little one calm. Finally, the bones clicked into place. Let out a breath she did not know she was holding. The first part was done. Now she needed to keep the bones there. She worked quickly. She placed the metal bar along the cub's leg, matching it to the shape of the bone inside. She wrapped the strips of her jacket around the leg and the bar, pulling them tight. Not too tight. Tight enough to hold, but not tight enough to stop the blood flow. The cub watched her with tired eyes. The pain was still there, but it was less now. The leg could not move. The bones could not separate again. Tied the last knot and sat back on her heels. She was covered in sweat. Her hands were still shaking, but she had done it. She looked at the cub. She looked at the splint on its leg. It was not perfect. A real doctor on a real civilized world would have done much better. But here, with nothing but basic tools and basic knowledge, it was the best she could do. The cub lowered its head onto the ground. Its eyes began to close. It was exhausted from the pain, and now sleep was taking it. Grandmother stood over the cub, watching it sleep. Then she turned too. The massive lowered her head until her eyes were level with his. For a long moment they just looked at each other, human and alien, stranger and stranger. Then grandmother pressed her forehead against. It was warm, warmer than expected. She could feel the rough texture of fur, the solid bone beneath. She could hear grandmother breathing, slow and deep. Closed her eyes, tears ran down her face. She did not know why she was crying. Relief maybe, or fear, or something else entirely. When she opened her eyes again, grandmother had stepped back. The old turned and walked to the edge of the camp, where she lay down and continued to watch. The rest of the pack did not leave. They stayed where they were, forming a circle around the fire, around the sleeping cub, around. She was not alone anymore. She was pack. The night grew cold, added more wood to the fire and watched the flames dance against the darkness. The cub slept beside her, its breathing slow and steady. The splint held firm on its broken leg. So far, so good. But knew that setting the bone was only the beginning. The real danger was yet to come. Infection. That was what killed most animals with broken bones. Not the break itself, but the tiny living things that got inside the wound and spread poison through the body. On Earth, humans had medicine to fight infection. Antibiotics, they called them. Magic pills that killed the bad things inside you. Had no antibiotics. She had used her small bottle of antiseptic to clean the wound, but that would only help for a little while. If infection started, she had nothing to fight it with. All she could do was watch, and wait, and hope. The pack stayed with her through the night. They did not sleep. They lay in their circle around the camp, their silver eyes catching the firelight, always watching. Had thought they would leave after she helped the cub, but they stayed. She understood why. The cub was not safe yet. The cub might still die, and if it died, they wanted to be there. Did not sleep either. She sat beside the cub, checking its breathing, checking its temperature, checking the leg for any sign of swelling or redness that might mean infection was starting. Every hour, she gently lifted the bandages and looked at the wound. So far it looked clean, but she knew that could change quickly. To keep herself awake, she talked. She did not know if they understood her words, but it felt better than sitting in silence. "My name is," she said softly. "I come from a planet called Earth. It is very far away from here. It took me many months to travel here on a ship." The pack watched her. Grandmother's ears moved slightly, turning toward the sound of her voice. "I have a family on Earth, my mother and father. My little brother, he is probably worried about me. They all probably think I am dead." She paused, looking up at the strange stars above. None of them looked like the stars from home. She did not know their names. She did not know anything about this sky. "I miss them," she said quietly. "I miss my home. I miss my bed and my mother's cooking and my brother's terrible jokes." The cub stirred in its sleep, looked down and gently touched its fur. It was softer than she expected, like touching a cloud. "But you know what?" she continued. "I think you miss things too. I think you love your family just like I love mine. I think you protect each other, care for each other. That is why you brought this little one to me, because you love it and you did not want it to die." Grandmother made a low sound. It was not threatening. It was almost like agreement. The hours passed slowly. The fire burned low and added more wood. The cold pressed in from all sides, but the circle of blocked the worst of it. Their massive bodies were like walls, holding back the wind. Realize something. They were keeping her warm. They were protecting her from the cold just like they protected each other. She was not just someone they brought their cub to. She was part of them now. Near midnight, the cub woke up. Its eyes opened, silver and bright in the firelight. For a moment it seemed confused. It tried to stand, tried to put weight on its broken leg. Pain shot through it and it cried out. Moved quickly. She put her hands on the cub, gently pushing it back down. "No, no," she said. "You must not walk yet. The bone needs time to heal. You must stay still." The cub did not understand her words. It whimpered and struggled, scared and confused. Did not know what to do. She could not explain to an alien creature that it needed to rest. She could not make it understand that moving would undo all her work. Then grandmother was there. The old walked into the firelight and lay down beside the cub. She wrapped her massive body around the little one, holding it still without hurting it. She pressed her nose against the cub's face and made soft sounds, the same sounds she had made during the surgery. The cub stopped struggling. It looked at grandmother, then back at grandmother. Slowly, its eyes began to close again. Within minutes, it was asleep once more. Grandmother did not move. She stayed curled around the cub, keeping it warm, keeping it safe. "Let out a breath. Thank you," she said. Grandmother's eyes met hers. In them saw something she would never forget. Not the cold look of a predator, not the empty stare of an animal. She saw warmth. She saw understanding. She saw a mother who loved her child. The night continued. Checked the wound again and again. The skin was not red. There was no bad smell. The cub's breathing was normal, all good signs. When the first light of morning appeared on the horizon, finally allowed herself to hope. The cub had survived the night. The worst danger time for infection was over. If the wound was going to go bad, it usually happened in the first few hours. But the first few hours had passed, and the wound was still clean. Sat back against the fallen tree and closed her eyes. She was so tired. Every part of her body hurt from sitting still all night. Her eyes burned from not sleeping. Her hands still shook from the stress of the surgery. But the cub was alive. That was what mattered. She felt something warm press against her side. She opened her eyes and saw that one of the younger had moved to sit beside her. It was not grandmother, but a smaller female with light gray fur. The creature leaned against, sharing its body heat. Was surprised. They had never come this close to her before. But now, after what she had done, things were different. She reached out slowly and touched this fur. The creature did not pull away. It made a soft rumbling sound, almost like a cat purring. "Thank you," whispered. "Thank you for trusting me." The sun rose higher. The pack began to stir. Some of them stood and stretched, their massive bodies moving in the golden morning light. Others remained lying down, watching the camp with half-closed eyes. Grandmother stood up carefully, making sure not to disturb the sleeping cub. She walked to the edge of the camp and looked out at the forest. Then she made a sound, a short bark that seemed to mean something. 3 of the younger stood and ran into the forest. They moved fast and silent, disappearing into the trees like shadows. Watched them go, wondering what was happening. She did not have to wait long to find out. Within an hour, the 3 returned. Each of them carried something in their mouth. Dead animals, small and furry like rabbits from Earth. They dropped the animals at its feet. Stared food. They had brought her food. She looked at grandmother. The old was watching her with those silver eyes and could almost swear she saw something like satisfaction there, like pride. Had taken care of their cub. Now they were taking care of her. She picked up one of the animals. Her scanner said it was safe to eat. She used her knife to prepare it and cook it over the fire. The meat was tough but good, much better than the roots and plants she had been surviving on. While she ate, the pack ate too. They tore into their own catches with powerful jaws, eating quickly and efficiently. But they always kept one eye on, always watching, always protecting. The cub woke again near midday. This time, it did not try to stand. It looked at its leg with the strange metal splint, sniffed at the bandages, then looked at with curious eyes. Moved closer and checked the wound. Still clean, still good. The bone was holding in place. If she was lucky, very lucky, it might actually heal. "Hello, little one," she said softly. "How are you feeling?" The cub did not answer, of course, but it reached out with its nose and touched his hand. The touch was gentle, almost careful, like the cub was afraid of hurting her. Smiled, she could not help it. "I am going to call you Hope," she said, "because that is what you are. You are my hope that I can make a difference here, that I can do something good on this world so far from home." Hope made a small sound. It was not a word, not a language, but somehow felt like the cub understood. Grandmother walked over and lay down beside Hope. She looked then at the cub, then back at. The message was clear. The cub was responsibility now. She had taken on the task of healing it. She would see it through to the end. Nodded slowly, she understood. "I will not let you down," she said. "I promise." The days that followed were hard. Had to check the wound constantly, change the bandages when they got dirty, make sure Hope did not try to walk too soon. She had to find clean water and boil it to wash her hands before touching the injury. She had to watch for any sign of fever or infection. But she was not alone anymore. The pack helped her in ways she never expected. They brought her food every day. They kept her warm at night. They warned her when storms were coming so she could prepare. They became her family on this strange world. And every day, Hope grew a little stronger. The cub's eyes lost their clouded look of pain. Its fur became shinier, healthier. It began to move more, to play, to push its nose against its hand, asking for attention. Had saved its life. Now she had to help it heal. The longest night was over, but the journey had just begun. 3 weeks passed. Hope's leg was healing well. The cub could stand now, putting a little weight on the injured leg without crying in pain. Checked the bone every day, feeling through the fur and skin to make sure it was setting straight. It was not perfect. Hope would probably walk with a small limp for the rest of its life. But it would walk. It would live. That was more than anyone could have expected. Had fallen into a routine. She woke up with the sun, ate breakfast with the pack, checked on Hope, then spent the day gathering food and water and supplies. The pack hunted for her, but she still liked to find plants and roots to add to her meals. She needed more than just meat to stay healthy. In the evenings, she sat by the fire and talked to the. They could not understand her words, but they seemed to enjoy the sound of her voice. Some of them would lie close to her, their warm bodies pressing against her side. Others would watch from a distance, their silver eyes reflecting the firelight. She was happy, or at least as happy as someone could be while stranded on an alien planet far from home. She had food, she had shelter, she had friends, strange as they were. But the peace did not last. It started with a sound, a low howl from somewhere far away in the forest. The pack heard it too. Every lifted its head, ears turning toward the sound. Grandmother stood up, her old body suddenly alert and tense. More howls answered the first. They came from different directions, from north and south and east. The forest seemed to echo with them, a chorus of voices calling to each other across the trees. Stood up, her heart beating fast. "What is happening?" she asked, though she knew no one could answer her. Grandmother made a sound, a short bark that had learned meant wait. Then the old walked to the edge of the camp and stood there, watching the forest. They waited. The sun set, the stars came out, the fire burned low, and still they waited. Then, as the moon rose above the trees, they came. More dozens of them. They walked out of the forest from every direction, their dark fur blending with the shadows. They were not from grandmother's pack. Their fur was different colors, some lighter, some darker. Some had scars, some were old, some were young. But they all had the same silver eyes, and those eyes were all looking at. She wanted to run. Every human instinct told her to run, to hide, to get away from these powerful predators. But she forced herself to stay still. Grandmother was still standing at the edge of the camp, not afraid. The other pack members were calm. Whatever this was, they had expected it. One of the new walked forward. It was a large male with a torn ear and patches of white fur on its chest. It stopped in front of grandmother, and the two of them touched noses. Then it turned and looked at. In its mouth it carried something. Another cub. This one was smaller than Hope, younger. Its fur was matted and dirty. It hung limp from the male's jaws, barely moving. The male walked forward and laid the cub at its feet. Then it stepped back and sat down, watching her with those silver eyes. Knelt down and examined the cub. It was sick, very sick. Its breathing was fast and shallow. Its eyes were clouded. When she touched its belly, she felt something hard and swollen. A parasite, her training told her. Some kind of creature living inside the cub, eating it from within. She looked up at the male. She looked at all the new, dozens of silver eyes watching her. They knew, somehow they knew what she had done for Hope. Word had spread through the forest from pack to pack. The human who healed, the stranger who could fix what was broken. And now they had come for her help. His hands were shaking. She looked at the sick cub, at its tiny body fighting against the thing inside it. She did not know how to remove a parasite. She was not a surgeon. She was not a doctor. She was just a human with basic training and a small medical kit that was almost empty. But if she did nothing, the cub would die. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She thought about what her old had told her once, during a long trip through space. Humans are not stronger than other species, he had said. We are not smarter, but we are stubborn enough to fight death itself, even when we know we will lose. Opened her eyes. She picked up the sick cub and carried it closer to the fire. "Okay," she said quietly. "Okay, let us see what we can do." The surgery lasted 3 hours. Used her small knife to make a cut in the cub's belly, just big enough to reach inside. The parasite was there, wrapped around the cub's organs like a snake. She pulled it out piece by piece, working slowly, carefully, trying not to damage anything important. The cub cried, the packs watched, hands became covered in blood. But she did not stop, she could not stop. This cub was counting on her, its pack was counting on her, she would not let them down. When the last piece of the parasite was out, she cleaned the wound with the last of her antiseptic. She sewed the cut closed with thread from her emergency kit. She wrapped the cub in clean bandages made from woven fur. Then she sat back and waited. The cub lived. Against all odds it lived. But that was only the beginning. More packs came in the days that followed, more sick and injured, an elder with a broken tooth causing infections in its mouth, a young hunter who had fallen from a cliff and could not move its back legs, a mother who had gotten a sharp stone stuck deep in her paw. Treated them all. She ran out of antiseptic, so she boiled water and tree bark that her scanner said had properties that could kill bad things. She ran out of bandages, so they began bringing her their shed fur, which she washed and wove into crude wrappings. She ran out of thread, so she used thin strips of dried plant fiber to close wounds. She learned as she worked, she made mistakes, she found new solutions. But she could not save everyone. The elder with the broken tooth was too old. The infection had spread too far. Removed the tooth and cleaned the wound, but the elder grew weaker every day. After a week, it closed its eyes and did not wake up. Buried it herself. She dug a hole in the soft earth beside her camp and laid the elder in it gently. The elder's pack watched in silence. When she was done, they did not leave. They stayed by the grave for 3 days, making soft sounds that might have been mourning songs. 2 more patients died in the weeks that followed. A cub that was too weak from birth to survive. A young male whose injuries were too many and too deep. Each death hurt like a knife in her chest. She had tried so hard. She had done everything she could. But some wounds were too great. Some sicknesses were too strong. Some lives could not be saved no matter how hard you fought. She expected the packs to blame her. She expected them to be angry to see her as a failure. Maybe they would attack her. Maybe they would leave and never return. But they did not. After each death, grandmother came to sit beside her. The old did not make any sound. She just sat there, warm and solid, sharing her presence. Sometimes, when cried, grandmother would press her forehead against, just like she had on the first night. The other packs brought her food after the deaths. They brought her clean water. They brought her soft fur to sleep on. They did not blame her for failing. They thanked her for trying. Remembered what it said. Humans fought death even when they knew they would lose. That was what made them special, not their success but their willingness to try. They understood that. Somehow, without words, without language, they understood. Months passed. Lost track of the days. Her emergency beacon kept counting, telling her that rescue was getting closer, but she stopped looking at it. She was too busy with her work. She became something on this world. Not just a survivor, not just a stranger, she became the healer. The packs came to her with their sick and injured, and she did her best to help them. Sometimes she succeeded. Sometimes she failed. But she always tried. Hope grew stronger every day. The young cub that had started everything was no longer a cub. It was almost full-grown now, its fur darkening to the same deep black as grandmother's. The limp was still there, a slight unevenness in its walk, but it did not slow Hope down. The young ran and played and hunted with the others. And every evening, Hope came to sit beside by the fire. It pressed its massive head against her shoulder and made soft, rumbling sounds of contentment. "You started all this," told it one night. "You know that, you changed everything." Hope just looked at her with those silver eyes. Maybe it understood. Maybe it did not. Either way, it stayed by her side. Was no longer alone. She was no longer afraid. She had found a place on this strange world. She had found a purpose. She was the healer, and she would keep healing as long as there were those who needed her help. The shuttle came down through the clouds on a bright morning, exactly 1 year after its crash. She heard it before she saw it, the roar of engines breaking the peaceful silence of the forest. She looked up and saw the silver shape falling from the sky, fire trailing behind it as it slowed its descent. For a moment, she had forgotten what that sound meant. Her life had become so different. Days filled with healing and hunting and sitting with the pack. Nights filled with firelight and soft voices and the warmth of hope sleeping beside her. But now the sound brought it all back. Earth, home, her family, the life she had left behind. The rescue had finally arrived. Stood up slowly. Around her, the pack was reacting to the noise. The younger were scared, pressing low to the ground, their ears flat against their heads. The older ones were alert, watching the sky with suspicious eyes. They had never seen anything like this before. Grandmother walked to side and looked up at the falling shuttle. The old made a questioning sound. "It is okay," said. She put her hand on grandmother's head, feeling the rough fur under her fingers. "They are friends. They have come to take me home." The shuttle landed in a clearing about 100 meters from the camp. The engines died, and the door opened with a hiss of escaping air. Two figures stepped out, wearing the gray uniforms of the Survey Corps. Recognized them. Specialist, a pilot she had trained with years ago, and Medic Lee, a young man who had joined the Corps right before mission. They saw her, they stopped walking, they stared. Understood why. She looked very different now. Her clothes were worn and patched, barely recognizable as a uniform. Her hair was long and wild, tied back with strips of woven fur. Her skin was darker from months in the sun. She looked like someone who had lived in the wild for a very long time. But that was not what made them stare. It was There were over 200 of them gathered around the camp. 12 different packs, all of them connected by their visits to over the past year. They had not come for any special reason. They were just there, as they often were, resting and socializing and waiting to see if anyone needed healing. 200 massive predators, surrounding a single human, and not one of them was attacking. And froze, their hands moved toward the weapons on their belts. "Wait," called out. She walked toward them quickly, holding up her hands. "Do not shoot, they will not hurt you, they are friends." "Friends?" His voice was high with fear. "Lieutenant Park, those are Class 5 predators. The Council classified them as extremely dangerous." The Council was wrong, stopped a few feet away from them. "They are not just predators, they are people, intelligent people with families and feelings and culture. They have just never had a way to show it before." Was looking past her at the camp, his eyes were wide. "Lieutenant, is that structures? Did they build those?" Turned to look. Over the past months, they had indeed built things around her camp. Simple things. Walls of stacked stones to block the wind. A roof of woven branches to keep off the rain. Storage areas for food and water. Nothing as advanced as human buildings, but far more than animals would ever make. "Yes," she said. "They learned by watching me. They are smart, smarter than anyone knew." Grandmother had followed. The old walked up beside her and sat down, looking at the two newcomers with calm silver eyes, and both took a step back. Grandmother said, "These are my people from my home world. They came to find me." Grandmother looked at, then at and. She made a low sound, thoughtful and deep. Then she lowered her head slightly, the same gesture she had made too on the first night. A gesture of respect. His mouth fell open. Did it just bow? Not bow, said. Acknowledge. She is accepting that you are part of my pack, that you belong here because I say you do. Had taken out his recorder. The small device was running, capturing everything. Lieutenant Park, this is incredible. If what you are saying is true, this could change everything. The Council's classification of this species, the status of this planet, the entire understanding of intelligence in the galaxy. I know, nodded. That is why I need you to record everything. The galaxy needs to see the truth. Over the next few hours showed them everything. She showed them the packs, how they organized themselves, how they communicated with sounds and gestures. She showed them the structures they had built, the hunting rotations they had developed, the warning system they used for storms. She showed them hope. The young had grown into a beautiful creature, its fur dark and shiny, its silver eyes bright with intelligence. The limp from its old injury was barely noticeable now. When called, Hope bounded over like an excited puppy, pressing its massive head against her chest. "This is the one who started it all," said. "A year ago, Hope was just a cub with a broken leg. The pack brought it to me, hoping I could help. I set the bone and splinted it, using nothing but basic training and scraps from my crashed pod." She lifted Hope's front leg to show them the faint scar. After that, word spread. Other packs came with their sick and injured. I treated everyone I could. Some lived, some died, but they saw that I was trying to help. They accepted me. Was recording everything, his face filled with wonder. "You performed surgery on alien creatures with no proper equipment and no knowledge of their biology. How did you do it?" Shrugged. "Bones are bones, blood is blood. Infection is infection. The basics are the same everywhere. I just did what any human would do. I tried." "That is exactly it," spoke quietly. "That is exactly why this matters." She looked then at, "Do you know why the council species abandoned physical medicine? Because they did not need it anymore. Their technology fixed everything. But that meant they forgot. They forgot how to heal with just their hands. They forgot how to try when success was not guaranteed." She gestured at the around them. These creatures had no technology, no medicine. When one of them got hurt badly, they could only watch it die. For thousands of years, that was their reality. And then you crashed here, a human, a species that remembered the old ways. Looked at grandmother, at Hope, at all the who had become her family over the past year. "They did not see me as a god," she said slowly. "They did not see me as a master or a ruler. They saw me as someone who could do something they could not, someone who was willing to try even when the odds were bad. That is why they trusted me. That is why they accepted me." Hope pushed its head against her hand, making soft sounds, smiled and scratched behind its ears. "Humans are not special because we are stronger or smarter," she continued. "We are special because we refuse to give up. We fight death even when we know we might lose, and that is something rare in the galaxy, something valuable." Lowered his recorder. His eyes were wet. "The Council needs to see this. The whole galaxy needs to see this." "They will," nodded firmly. "We are going to take all this footage back. We are going to file reports and testimonies. We are going to make them understand that this species is not just animals. They are people, and they deserve to be recognized as such." Felt hope rising in her chest. Real hope, not just for herself but for grandmother and Hope and all the packs that had trusted her. "There is one more thing," she said. "I am not leaving." And both turned to look at her. "What?" asked. "I am not leaving," repeated. "Not permanently. I will come back with you to give testimony and help with the classification process. But after that, I am returning here. These are my people now. I cannot abandon them." Grandmother made a sound and realized that the old understood. Somehow, despite the language barrier, grandmother understood that was talking about staying. The old walked forward and pressed her forehead against chest. Around them, the other made soft sounds, a chorus of voices expressing something that needed no translation. "Welcome home," and watched in silence. They did not argue. They did not try to convince to change her mind. They understood. "We will help you," said finally. "Whatever you need, supplies, medicine, equipment, we will make sure you have everything. And we will come back," added. "Not just us, other humans, researchers, doctors, teachers, people who want to learn from thee and help them grow." Smiled through her tears. "Thank you, both of you, thank you." The shuttle stayed for 3 days. During that time and recorded everything they could. They documented the pack structures, the communication methods, the primitive buildings. They filmed treating a young with a cut paw, showing how she cleaned and bandaged the wound. They filmed Hope, running and playing, its healed leg carrying it with only the slightest limp. And they filmed grandmother, the ancient pack leader who had started it, all by trusting a strange creature from the stars. When the shuttle finally lifted off, watched it climb into the sky, she felt sad but also hopeful. The galaxy would know the truth now. They would be recognized. Things would change. Hope pressed against her side, making soft questioning sounds. "It is okay," said, stroking its fur. "They will be back and so will others. This is just the beginning." She looked around at her camp, at the resting in the morning sun, at grandmother watching her with those wise silver eyes. "This is just the beginning," she repeated softly, "for all of us."